You'd think that when countries share laws, they become more alike, right? But what if the exact opposite is true? What if trying to make laws the same is actually a recipe for creating brand new, totally unexpected differences? So, that's what we're going to dig into today. We're going to look at what really happens when a legal idea travels from one country to another. And our case study is a fascinating one, the European principle of good faith, and its pretty rocky journey into British law. All right, let's set the scene. You've got this European principle of good faith in contracts, basically the idea that everyone involved should act honestly and fairly. It gets introduced into British law, and the reception it gets, well, let's just say it was not a warm welcome. It was openly hostile. I mean, just listen to the language here. Contagious disease, inherently repugnant. Wow, this was not some polite academic disagreement. This was a deep cultural clash. The British legal system saw this principle as a foreign invader that threatened its very core. Now, the old way of thinking about this is something called a legal transplant. The idea is you take a law from one place and implant it in another. And like an organ transplant, it's either accepted or it's rejected. But as we're about to see, that metaphor might be way too simple for what's really going on. And that brings us to a new, much more powerful idea, the legal irritant. This is a concept that completely flips the script on how we think about laws moving across borders. Okay, so let's just be clear on the old idea first, the legal transplant. It assumes the law itself doesn't change. The only question is, will the new host body accept it or reject it? It's a simple yes or no, a totally binary outcome. But here's the game changer. The legal irritant idea suggests something way more turbulent and honestly, way more creative. The foreign rule isn't just given a thumbs up or thumbs down. No, it provokes a reaction. It creates a disturbance that actually forces the host system to change and evolve. So here's the key takeaway, right? An irritant isn't just absorbed or adapted. It kicks off a whole chain reaction. The best way to think about it is like a grain of sand inside an oyster. The sand isn't just, accepted. It irritates the oyster. And that irritation forces the oyster into this creative process of building something totally new around it, a pearl. In the end, both the grain of sand and the oyster are fundamentally changed. Okay, so you might be asking, why does this irritation even happen? Well, to get that, you have to understand that law doesn't exist in a bubble. It's deeply, deeply connected to the world around it. It turns out, law has these crucial binding arrangements with all sorts of other parts of society, things like politics, culture, and, for our story, especially the economy. And these hidden connections are exactly what a foreign legal rule bumps up against, causing all that irritation. And there is no better way to see this in action than by comparing the economic worlds, what the source calls production regimes, of Germany, where good faith came from, and Britain. I mean, just look at how different these two are. On one side, you have Germany, with a coordinated market economy. It's all about long-term relationships, cooperation, trust. Then you have Britain's liberal market economy, which is driven by fierce, short-term competition. We are talking about two fundamentally different economic universes. So back on its home turf in Germany, good faith makes perfect sense. It's like the legal glue holding things together. It's what's called a facilitative rule. It legally reinforces the trust and cooperation that the whole economic system is already built on. It fits like a glove. So, what on earth happens when you take this principle, which is all about cooperation, and drop it into Britain's hyper-competitive world? Well, it can't play the same role. It has to be completely rebuilt from the ground up. So this good faith irritant, it isn't rebuilt to suddenly make British companies act all cooperative like German ones. That would never fit the economic reality. Instead, it gets transformed into pretty much its opposite, a prohibitive rule. It becomes less about encouraging teamwork and more about putting the brakes on the nasty side effects of all that competition. So its new job is basically to set boundaries. Instead of getting companies to work together, its reconstructed purpose is to protect people, consumers, from the kind of risks you get in Britain's system. Risks like unchecked corporate power or totally unfair terms in a contract. It becomes a shield, not a bridge. And this all builds to a really wild, totally counterintuitive conclusion about the whole idea of trying to unify laws between different countries. Get this. The very act of trying to make European law more uniform by sharing this one principle, of good faith. It actually created a brand new source of legal divergence. The goal was harmony, but the result was a whole new kind of difference. Because of that irritation from those hidden economic contexts, one single principle, which was supposed to bring everyone together, ends up getting rebuilt in two totally different ways. You start with one rule, and you end up with two, each one custom-built for the unique reality of its home. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. It makes you question this simple idea that globalization and making things the same just leads to, well, sameness. Maybe, in law, just like in culture, the big push for global unity is actually one of the most powerful engines we have for creating vibrant and totally unexpected local diversity.